Welcome to Prism Technologies. I am Venkat. This is part 10 of ASP.NET MVC tutorial. In this video, we'll discuss working with multiple tables. Please watch part 9 before proceeding with this video. In SQL Server database, I've got these two tables. On the left hand side, we have TBL department table, which has got departments data, and on the right hand side we have TBL employees table, which has got employee data. Now, using these two tables, I want to build an MVC application in which departments list page should display the list of all departments that are available in TBL department table. Department names must be rendered as hyperlinks. Once I click on a department name, then we should redirect the user to the employee list page, which shows all the employees belonging to the department upon which we have clicked. And then once I click on an employee name, then we should redirect the user to the employee details page, which shows the complete details of the employee, like employee ID, name, gender, and city. And then on this employee details page, notice that we have this link back to employee list, which when I click, we should redirect the user back to the employee list page. And once I click on this link here, back to department list, we should redirect the user back to the department list page. Let's see how to implement this. First, we'll implement the department list page. Okay, so let's flip to SQL Server Management Studio. Look at this. I have these two tables, TBL department and TBL employee. So let's flip to Visual Studio. First, let's go ahead and add a model class. Okay, so right click on the models folder, add new class, and let's call this department. Department.cs, that's the name of the class file. So our class is going to be department class, and if you notice the department table, it has got two columns, ID and name. So let's go ahead and create two properties. So public int ID, and let's have the get and set accessors. And along the same lines, let's go ahead and have the name of the department, which is going to be string. And then look at this, a department can have multiple employees. So we are going to have another property here. So public list of employee, and let's call this employees. So a department can have multiple employees. So using this property, we are going to retrieve the list of employees who belong to the given department. Okay, so we have our department model object already. So let's go ahead and build this solution so that we'll have this department class compiled. So that's the first step to do. Okay, and this department class should be mapped to TBL department table, and to do that I'm going to use the table attribute. And if you remember, table attribute is present in system.componentModel.dataAnnotations.schema namespace. So I'm going to use the table attribute now, and then we are going to specify the name of the table, so which is going to be TBL department. Let's copy the name of the table. Okay, so we have our department model class right now. And then the next important thing to do is, if you look at the employee context class, at the moment it's only retrieving the DB set of employees. We also need to retrieve the DB set of departments as well. So let's add another property to this employee context class. So, and I'm going to call that DB set of department, and let's name the property as departments. Okay, so that's the second change. Now let's go ahead and implement the department controller class, and to do that, right click on the controllers folder, add controller, and let's call it department controller. Let's click add, so that should add the department controller class for us. And then I'm going to make use of this default index action method here. So what we need to do, we need to create an instance of employee context class. So where is this employee context class present? That's present in this MVC demo.models namespace. So let's go ahead and import this namespace in our department controllers class file. So employee context, let's create an instance of this employee context class which is going to establish the connection to the database, and then let's use the departments property of the employee context class to retrieve the list of departments that are present in TBL departments table. Okay, so this property is going to return the list of departments. Okay, so let's convert that to list, and then let's declare a variable which can hold the list of departments. So list department, and let's call it departments. Alright, and let's hand over these departments to the view for rendering. Okay, so the next step is obviously to add a view which can render the list of departments, and to do that I'm going to right click on the index action method. From the context menu, select add view. The name of the view is going to be index. We're going to make use of Razor View Engine, and we want to create a strongly typed view, and we want to select department as our model class. Okay, and let's click add, which should add the index view. Look at that, in the views folder it has automatically added the department folder, and within that we have this index.cshtml. So within the departments list page, first of all the title of the page should be departments list. So let's go ahead and change the title of the page to departments list, and let's also set the text on the page to departments list. Okay, and let's use a div tag here just to specify some styles. So div style is equal to, I'm going to set the font family to Arial. Okay, let's go ahead and use a using statement so that we don't have to use the fully qualified name of the department class every time. So I'm going to get rid of that fully qualified name there, and I'm going to use using MVC models, MVC demo.models. Okay, that's the namespace, and the department class is present within that namespace. Okay, so we know that to this view we are actually handing over a list of departments. Look at this, this is actually a collection of departments. But if you look at our index.cshtml at the moment, we are only getting one department object. So we are expecting, we are actually passing a list back. So I'm going to set the model as IEnumerable of department. Okay, so now what we need to do, we need to loop through this list of departments that this view is going to receive, and then we want to display the department names. Okay, and if you remember in the previous session we discussed about using HTML action link helper to generate the hyperlinks for us. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the employee index view of the employee controller, and I'm going to copy this code and then use it within our departments page. So I'm going to copy this, and then let's paste that within our index.cshtml of the departments folder. Okay, so for each department, because this view is going to receive list of departments, so for each department, let's call the object as department in model. What is our model? It's a list of departments. So we are looping through each department, and what we are trying to do, we are actually look at this. If you remember the action link, you need to specify the link text and the action name, and then any root values. Okay, any parameters, if at all that method has got some parameters. Okay, so here basically the link text has to be the department name, so department name, and then we want to when I click the hyperlink, the department name hyperlink, we actually want to invoke we want to redirect the user to employee list page. Okay, and to which controller action method within the employee list page? we want to redirect the user to the index action of the employee controller. So here we have employee controller. We want to redirect the user to index action. Okay, so I'm going to specify the action method as index, and if you remember, we want to redirect the user to the employee controller. So I'm going to use another overloaded version of this action link method. It has got several overloads. We discussed about them in the previous session. Look at this, there are 10 overloads. Now when I click this department name hyperlink, we want to redirect the user to the index action of the employee controller. Okay, so here we also need to specify the controller name as well, and to do that, look at this, there are several overloads. So I can use an overloaded version where it takes the controller name as well. So I want to redirect the user to employee controller, and then look at this, I need to specify the root values as well, because look at this, when I click on a department name, then we redirect the user to the employee list page, and we want to, on that page, we want to display the list of employees belonging to the department on which I have clicked. So to the destination page, we also need to pass the department ID. Okay, so that's going to be the parameter. So I'm going to call this for now department ID. And then how do we get access to the department ID? Use the department object. So department ID is equal to department dot ID. Okay, so that should do. So let's go ahead and run this now and see if the department names will be listed as expected. So we want to go to the department controller and index action method, which should display the list of departments. Look at this, I get the list of departments as expected. And when I hover my mouse over, look at that, I'm actually getting, it says localhost MVC demo department, and it says question mark length is equal to 8. It's not actually working as expected. Why is that? That's because if you look at the overloaded version we are using, we are actually using the wrong version of action link HTML helper method. So I want to use an overloaded version which takes the link text, so we have the link text, the department name, and then I actually, if you look at this, I want to use an overloaded version which takes four parameters here: the link text, which is the department name, the action name, which is the index action within employee controller, and then these are the root values. And finally, this overloaded version also expects HTML attributes to be passed. I am passing null at the moment. Okay, so this is the correct version of action link HTML helper method that I want to use. So with this, it should work as expected. So let me run this once again, and then let's go back to departments controller and index action. Let me hover my mouse over there, and look at that, now it's working as expected. Look at the URL there. When I click on this, it's going to fail, but that's fine. But look at the URL, we are navigating the user to the employee controller, and we are passing the department ID there. Okay, so the index action within the employee controller now needs to receive department ID parameter. So let's go ahead and pass that. So I'm going to call this department ID. And then look at this employee context object is going to retrieve all employees. We don't want all employees. We want to filter the employees based on the department ID. And to do that, I'm going to use a where clause here, the link extension method, where the employee, such that employees department ID. Look at that, now I don't have the department ID property in the employee object at the moment. So let's go ahead and add that property to our employee object, the employee model class. So let's go to the employee model class, and then I'm going to add here the department ID property. and that's going to also have the default get and set accessor. Alright, so now let's come back to the employee controller index action method. We want to filter the employees based on the department to which they belong. I'm going to use the where clause for that, where employee such that emp.department ID is equal to whatever we are passing into this controller action method, and we convert that to list, and then we hand that list to the view. So now we are filtering. Okay, so now let's go ahead and run this and see if it works as expected. So let's navigate to department controller index action method. So let me click on the IT department. So now look at that, I get all the employees that belong to the IT department. Let's go back, click on the payroll department. Look at that, I get the employees who belong to payroll department. Now the rest of the workflow is already implemented. This page we have implemented in the previous session. Okay, so when I click on this back to list, I'm going to go back, but then look at this. The problem is when I actually click on this back to list, look at the URL. It's going to the index action of the employee controller, but then if you remember, the index action of the employee controller expects a department ID to be passed back, which we are not doing at the moment. So let's go ahead and change that. So within the details view of the employee, let's go ahead and change this here. So we want to send the user back to the index action of the employee controller, but then we also need to specify the department ID, because right now we are filtering the employees based on the department to which they belong. So here the model here is actually the employee object, and if you remember, employee object has got a department ID, so all we need to do here is to pass the department ID. Okay, so how do we pass the department ID? So new, and we specify department ID is equal to @model dot department ID. That's it. So this should fix that issue. So let me run this once again. Let's go back to department index. Let's click on HR department. So we are on the employee list. Let's click on the employee name, and we are on the employee details page. Now look at this. When I click this, I go back to that department, which is the HR department. Okay, now here we need to implement another link. When I click on that link, we need to redirect the user back to the department list. Let's see how to implement that. So let me copy this and then use it within our index action, index view. So now look at this. We want to go back from the employee list to the department list, and how do we get the department list? We have the index action within the departments controller, so we need to redirect the user back to the index action of the departments controller. And to do that, so I'm going to go to the index action. We also need to specify the controller name. To which controller we want to go? We want to go to the department controller. And we don't have to specify any parameters for the department index action, because it's going to list all the departments. So I'm going to get rid of this one. And if you look at the overloaded version that I'm using, so I'm using the one which takes the link text, this overloaded version, link text, action name, and the controller name. Alright, now let's go ahead and run this. We should have everything working now. So I want to go to department index, click on the department. We should have the employees belonging to that department. I click on this one, it should go back to the department list. So click on IT department, go to that employee, back to list, back on IT department employees, back to list, the complete department list. On this slide you can find resources for ASP.NET, C# and SQL Server interview questions. That's it for today. Thank you for listening. Have a great day.